It was a mistake that a reporter was inadvertently added to a signal chat with high-level national security principals having a policy discussion about imminent strikes against the Houthis and the effects of the strike.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard testifying on Capitol Hill today, responding to controversy surrounding the use of a commercial texting app by top Trump administration officials. While Gabbard admits a mistake, the Trump administration continues to claim that classified information was not shared on the text chain. Joining us to discuss this and more, Niall Stanage, White House columnist here at the Hill. So there was another hearing today on Capitol Hill, this time over in the House Intel Committee. Two members that were on that text chain, again in front of those committee members. Democratic Representative Joaquin Castro had some pointed questions for them. Let's take a listen.
There is no way, having sat on this committee for 9 years, that somebody would come in with that information and give us something that says, unclassified, you can walk out of this room with this information and give it to whomever you want. You know, the idea that this information, if it was presented to our committee, would not be classified, y'all know is a lie. That's ridiculous. I've seen things much less sensitive be presented to us with high classification. And to say that it isn't is a lie to the country.
So we've all read the text by now. There was one specific target that was talked about. The aircraft involved that were talked about. Timing of the strikes. Sure sounds like something that would be classified.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think it is a very hard argument to make that is unclassified material. In fact, there are guidelines from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence that seem absolutely to fit this to a T in terms of any information that provides indications of a US attack or an attack by any of its allies should be classified as top secret. So to suggest that the material in the Hegseth chat shouldn't be classified seems an enormous stretch.
The Secretary of Defense posted on X today, he says, no names, no targets, no locations, no units, no routes, no sources, no methods, and no classified information. The CIA director says, anyway, we're all focused on the wrong thing here. Let's listen to him.
And at the end of the day, what is most important is that the mission was a remarkable success, is what everyone should be focused on here, because that's what did happen, not what possibly could have happened.
Seems like that's like saying it's okay that I drove drunk because I didn't crash.
Yeah, I mean, the possibly could happen is an important question in and of itself. This is not really a debate about the merits or policy reasons for striking targets in Yemen. The question that is facing us here is it viable and defensible for the topmost people in the Trump administration to be sharing information on a commercial messaging app that they've inadvertently invited a journalist to about a coming attack? That's the point, and that's where the danger lies.
Sounds like Republican leaders on Capitol Hill are interested in investigating this. There's been talk of investigations in both the Senate Intelligence Committee and Armed Services Committees. There's been calls for the Defense Department Inspector General to look in this. Democrats want the Department of Justice to get involved. How far do you think these investigations will go, considering Republicans control all the levers of power?
It's a great question because obviously President Trump has a very firm grip on the Republican Party right now. But it has been interesting, to your question, Drew, to see people like Roger Wicker, Republican senator from Mississippi, suggesting that there should be some level of inquiry into this. And I think that speaks to the level of concern that some people have. Whether it goes all that far in the current environment is a different question, because certainly most members of the Republican Party on Capitol Hill are not in any rush to expose vulnerabilities on the Trump administration's part.
Not that Europe needs any more evidence that this administration doesn't like them, but the private feelings of top officials were also made public in that text chain. Secretary of Defense calling Europe pathetic. Could there come a time when the U.S. needs its traditional European allies and they're not willing to help not only just because of the rhetoric coming from the Trump administration, but also because they see how the administration handles sensitive information.
Yeah, I think the second point, the sensitive information, is the really important one. The broader strategic picture, Europe generally still needs US assistance, but will European intelligence agencies, the British, the French, still be willing to cooperate with American intelligence to the same degree? There is a real question mark over that, because these are issues of very high sensitivity, using, informants and things of that nature. Will they be willing to share to the same extent when we see these kinds of lapses?
If I'm an intelligence officer working for the British government, do I want to put my career on the line, my life on the line, my sources on the line to share information with the Trump administration when I'm not exactly sure how they'll handle it?
Exactly, and that is the big question that's hovering over all of the rest of this debate.
In an interview last night, President Trump said that Russia is dragging its feet in ceasefire negotiations. Trump kind of excused it away, saying something like, this is what I might do in a business negotiation. But I'm wondering if there's a chance that Trump could grow frustrated with Russia's response to his overtures, especially considering Putin's maximalist goals.
It's possible in theory. Now, the thing that balances against it is Trump's propensity to be pretty generous in his interpretations of Russian intent. But I do think that Trump wants a peace deal in Ukraine. And if he believes that Russia is standing in the way of that, he could grow frustrated. Briefly, Drew, this all goes to negotiations over a ceasefire pertaining to the Black Sea specifically, and then Russia apparently adding conditions to that.
We're talking just about that specific ceasefire now, but a broader peace deal that would end with the ceasing of hostilities seems like something that Russia is going to be reluctant to sign on to. It considers itself being successful on the ground and also has goals that go far beyond Crimea and the eastern part of Ukraine. It seems like it's going to be hard for Russia to get to a place where it can say yes without huge concessions from Ukraine and Trump that Trump might not be able to get to.
Yeah, exactly, because the point here is Russia thinks it has the upper hand. It has been making advances on the battlefield, and Ukraine's main benefactor, the United States, is backing away from it pretty rapidly. So then the question becomes, what is the motivation on Russia's part to make peace? And if they are continuing to advance and they still have the objective of capturing all of Ukraine, then why would they stop now? That's not immediately clear.
All right, lots to happen. We'll leave it at that. Niall Stanage, thanks so much. The Supreme Court has upheld Biden-era regulations on ghost guns in a 7-2 decision, with Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas dissenting. Ghost guns refer to do-it-yourself homemade firearms that have become increasingly popular among criminals. The guns do not have serial numbers and are difficult to trace. In 2022, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives began regulating the weapons, issuing serial number requirements and background checks like other guns. The decision marks a rare win for gun control advocates, but the future of the regulations remain unclear. The Trump administration has begun heading a review of all Biden-era firearm regulations, paving the way for possible repeals on restrictions. Concern and confusion is rattling students and borrowers following President Trump's plans to move student loans to the Small Business Administration. Trump signed an executive order on Thursday seeking to shutter the Education Department. The next day, his administration announced it was transferring the loans to the SBA and said it was cutting 40% of the agency's workforce. The decision affects the Education Department's largest program. The announcement has advocates worrying about handing it over to an administration with no experience handling the loans and that is facing a reduction in force. Experts are advising borrowers to reach out directly to their loan officers and document their repayment efforts. President Trump still has his eye on Greenland, and it seems his administration is not backing down. Vice President Vance is joining his wife, Usha, to head to the Arctic island, a trip that has sparked backlash from Greenland and Denmark officials. NewsNation Washington correspondent Tom Dempsey joins us now with the latest.
The Trump team has said multiple times that Greenland has a vital security interest to the United States. And despite getting some pushback with this upcoming trip, Vice President J.D. Vance says he's looking forward to visiting Greenland this upcoming Friday.
There was so much excitement around Usha's visit to Greenland this Friday that I decided that I didn't want her to have all that fun by herself, and so I'm going to join her. A lot of other countries have threatened Greenland, have threatened to use its territories and its waterways to threaten the United States, to threaten Canada, and of course to threaten the people of Greenland. So we're going to check out how things are going there.
According to his team, Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha Vance will head to the B-2 Feek space base operated by the U.S. Space Force and receive a briefing on Arctic security issues. That base is actually the northernmost security installation for the United States military. It helps with missile warning and defense as well as space surveillance. But this visit all comes as President Donald Trump has said in the past that the United States should acquire Greenland, which is a self-governing territory of Denmark, home to around 56,000 people, many of them with an indigenous Inuit background. Greenland, though, also has a rich earth mineral deposit, which can be used in the production of cell phones and for renewable energy. It also has strategic air and sea routes, which has attracted a Russian military presence. But this trip has also gotten the attention, obviously, of Greenland's leaders, with the outgoing prime minister writing on Facebook earlier this week. It must also be stated in bold that our integrity and democracy must be respected without any external interference. Greenland's outgoing prime minister has also noted the amount of worry he's hearing from people who live in Greenland. Denmark's prime minister also came out accusing the United States of putting extra pressure on Greenland. At the Capitol, I'm Tom Dempsey, NewsNation.
Thank you, NewsNation's Tom Dempsey. The Federal Emergency Management Agency's mission is to respond before, during, and after disasters. In today's Political Minute, NewsNation Chief Washington Correspondent and host of The Hill, Blake Berman, reports on potential shifts coming to FEMA as well as the money it spends on disaster relief.
So are changes coming to FEMA? I'm Blake Berman, host of The Hill on NewsNation. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announcing in Monday's cabinet meeting that they were going to quote-unquote eliminate FEMA. There's also a bipartisan bill in the House that would make FEMA its own agency, reporting directly to the president. In 2023, for example, FEMA responded to more than 100 disasters, giving out over $13 billion in total disaster relief. But the totals for just the California wildfires and the North Carolina hurricanes will likely far exceed that number. According to Congress, disasters per year have increased about 61% in roughly the last 3 decades. As of March this year, there's $10 billion in the Major Disaster Relief Fund. It's projected to go into the red in June. A FEMA Review Council is set to meet in April to discuss reform. I'm Blake Berman, and this is the NewsNation Political Minute.
And you can find more news and analysis from Blake and our colleagues 24/7 on NewsNation. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to joinnn.com. That's today's Daily Debrief. I'm Drew Petrimoulx. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.